I'm just sitting here having my breakfast and I'm listening to Scary Mysteries in regards to the Houston, Texas serial killer. And when I do my Connecting the Dots podcast and that, where I'm looking into unsolved murders and all of that, obviously, um, when I've been looking at research material, this one has been kind of floating past me. It keeps catching my eye, but while I have kind of looked at it, I've not looked into it because I'm trying to. I got codes about a serial killer on the East Coast, so I've been keeping an eye out to see whether my serial killer's gonna turn up on the news. I know everything about this person. So I have been keeping an eye out, and this one has been kind of like flying past, but never I've never been given instructions to look into it until now. And what I'm noticing is everyone keeps talking about the inconsistency of the ages and sexes and all of that of the victims. There's 22 victims as of the recording of that video. I'll put the link to the description box below. But I'm wondering if maybe people are looking at this the wrong way and they're confusing serial killer with human sacrifice. From all my years going back, working with Border Patrol, a couple of people from the CIA, people in the police department and military, both veterans and serving, because I got dragged into this whole human trafficking, sex trafficking, thing that led me to where I am with Donald Trump and that today, and now Nigel Farage and all that. Texas, Arizona, New Mexico are like the main vein for human trafficking. We worked on a case. I worked on a case with some veterans who like were finding skulls all over the place and stuff like that. And funnily enough, they were also meeting resistance with authorities in Texas and Arizona and that. Now the thing is, these murders started apparently in January, and they had their crescendo sort of around September. What I would suggest to people, see, if I had a laptop and a tablet and my phone and all that, I'd sit down and do it all and present the case to the police. Like, I'd love to present this. I just don't have time at the moment. I don't have the equipment. I don't have Wi Fi. I don't have broadband. I don't have any of that. I'm literally just like surviving on my phone. But what I would suggest the Texas police do for the ones that are genuine and not trying to cover anything up, because that's what we were dealing with back in the day, like 2017, 2018. We were dealing with a lot of law enforcement who were covering things up. Like how the autopsies are quote unquote pending, right? That's always going to be suspicious, because it means that they're putting off letting the public know what they all died from. Now, when there's a cover up with the manner of death, that's when you've got to be suspicious and look at maybe there being a bigger picture behind the cover up, like politicians. They're protecting politicians. I'm telling you now, they're protecting politicians and all of that, because those cases, they don't say to me serial killer, they say sacrifice. And what I would suggest people do is look at the times that the bodies were found, and in the up to 2 weeks leading up to when they were found, as to look on the like the Satanist, the devil worshipper almanac, and see what rituals were needing to be performed around the time that these 22 bodies went missing. Now, what you usually find, and this is, I'm an occult physicists, so like this is my world. What you usually find is the younger the victim, they're wanting for breeding purposes, like to collect sperm, to collect DNA for cloning purposes. They're picked specifically for cloning purposes. All they might do is take a sperm sample or like swab the inside of their cheek, and then because they're witnesses, they have to get rid of them, right? So the reason why they do sacrifices is because the sacrifice is innocent and unwilling, and they're forced to take on the sin of the person committing the sacrifice. Now, we're talking about Texas, and if you know anything about the David case, you know that singer David, D4VD, and the girl found in the Tesla car. Look at all that. Austin and Houston are less than 3 hours away. It's like a 2 hour, 45-minute drive. You need to look into all of that, because I'm telling you now, you're not dealing with a serial killer. You're dealing with human sacrifices. When it is older people, like when it's old people, like homeless people, people that they consider to be low value, like prostitutes, homeless people, the elderly, that sort of thing, it's because they're needing the numbers, and the more people that they sacrifice, the bigger the ask. When they're asking for something really big, like please let me get away with not being caught on the Epstein files, like please, if I sacrifice 22 people, 40 people, whatever, and hide it under serial killer, please let me get away with the whole Epstein thing. But it doesn't work like that, because God puts people like me here, and I can always spot when it's a human sacrifice. And I'm telling you now, everyone's got it twisted. That's not a serial killer. However, having said that, I have maintained many, 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 many times before. I've talked about this, like with Richard Ramirez, and like the Hillside Stranglers, and Charles Manson and all that. Serial killers: John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, the Yorkshire Ripper, Myra Hindley and Ian Brady, the Krays. They supplied children to the buyers. They were like, they got children for the buyers. Keith Bennett, I'm utterly convinced, from the Yorkshire Moors murders, I'm utterly convinced Keith Bennett was a supply. So I think what people need to do in regards to that case is they need to look at it from the perspective of human sacrifices. What was going on around September, that they needed to make the biggest sacrifice, and then match it up with the moon cycles and the devil worshippers almanac, and it will tell you like what was required of them. A lot of them, it's like it's for sex, because they need the body fluids. And then some of them, it's like, they need their hands and feet, or they need to do certain things to the genitals, and, that sort of thing. So obviously, without getting any information about the autopsies, not knowing what they've died from is a little bit harder to be able to say, oh, well, it was because of this, that, and the other. But in situations like this, where it doesn't make sense, always look towards human sacrifices. And because, like I said, the bulk of the murders were around about September, what was going on just before or just after that they needed that supply? There's a serial killer that I know that has been going around the East Coast, and I don't know whether they haven't put two and two together yet, or whether, I don't like to think that it's because it hasn't happened yet, but I did get codes about the man who wears a tuxedo and a Rolex watch, but all the women that he kills, and he leaves their bodies along waterways, under bridges, which is why I was taken to this case here, because I was looking for unsolved murders to do with bodies of water and like, under bridges and that. But my serial killer has a type. They're all like a certain height, like sort of like a certain colour in that. His is like, yeah, he's taking it out on a certain kind of woman because of, whoever it was that turned him psychopathic in that. But I know that the one that I'm looking into, he comes from money. And he's from around I said East Coast, but I said, honestly, in all honesty, it feels more like around about Florida, along that kind of, it's very sort of, yeah. But I haven't been able to find him yet. But and trying to find him, I got led to this Houston one, and I'm just telling you now, serial killers for the most part do it. They take the blame, they take the fall for sacrifices, for the elites and all of that. Charles Manson is a perfect example of that, like the Hillside Stranglers and John Wayne Gacy. Because they all kind of mix in the same circles to do with like entertainment, like in business, law, politics, that sort of thing. John Wayne Gacy and Ted Bundy being prime examples of that. So they take the infamy, because unfortunately, like, there's a lot of people that just have a thing for serial killers. Like they will bend over backwards to worship a serial killer while they're in prison. And I know from a fact, with my husband serving 11 years in a New York State prison, he was telling me himself that the ones that were in there for being serial killers, they didn't have to lift a finger. Women would just like send them money and clothes and gifts and food, and like these women just worship them. They didn't have to pay for phone calls, they didn't have to pay for commissary or anything, because there were just like dozens of women out there that just wanted to be this serial killer's woman and that. So there's a lot of perks to taking the fall for a lot of these quote unquote serial killer murders. And it's just, there's a pattern. So always look in the Devil Worshippers Almanac. Don't confuse Satan with Devil Worshippers, please. So yeah, that's the first thing you do. And the non-releasing of the autopsy results and all of that, as of the time that they were making the show that I was watching, when they're not releasing how they died, there's a cover-up. And then you have to ask yourself, why is there a cover-up? But the younger the victim, it's because it's usually for sex or breeding. They want their DNA for cloning. They want their DNA like to impregnate them. Well, obviously, if they've turned up dead. If they go missing and never get found, it's usually, for breeding. But when they turn up dead, now see, with cloning the way it is, people like Elon Musk and all of that having the technology they have, swab the cheek. And then they've got to get rid of the evidence in that, so they can make a better version. And unfortunately, this is all technology that we have now. So yeah, so that's what I think people need to look into. So I'll put a link in the description box of the video that I was watching, and we'll just have to see what happens. But just remember that case with that David, with his 13-year-old, or she was 15 when she was found, but 13 when she was killed, found in the Tesla. Go down the rabbit hole, Alice. It's all connected. So I'm going to go now, and I shall speak to you later. Go and get myself another coffee. So that's just me putting my opinion in there. I'll speak to you later. Ka kite anō. Mwah.